Hi there everyone. Happy Epiphany Day. That's what January 6th is, the day in the Christian church here when we celebrate the wise men, the Magi, coming from a far off country in the east to worship Jesus, the newborn king. Have you ever noticed how on this day, with the day of Epiphany long ago, as well as kind of any time really, the very same message can mean great things for some people, but terrible things for other people? For example, over the weekend, the Texans were playing the Titans in the last football game of the season. And after a very long pass, right at the very end, in the last couple of seconds, the Titans kicked a game-winning field goal to inch ahead and win the game. And that was a great rejoicing for the Tennessee Titans, as well as a crushing blow and loss for the Houston Texans and their fans. The same message can bring great rejoicing for one side and crushing losses for the other side. That's really the message of Jesus, actually. It's not true, is it, that everybody loves the fact that he's here and everybody loves the fact that he's the King of Kings. Some do and some don't. Long ago, on that day of Epiphany, when the wise men from the east saw the star, the special way God communicated to them about where baby Jesus was, they went to the most natural spot. They went to the capital, to Jerusalem, where they asked King Herod, "Hey, we saw the star, heard a king is born. Where is he? Do you know?" They thought that would be great rejoicing, like King Herod and others had just won a big football game and they were excited to go find this new king. But instead, it was great panic that started, and a crushing blow for all of them. The wise men came from such a far off place, they didn't realize that King Herod was paranoid about his throne. This is the guy who had his wife murdered and then frantically cried out for her the rest of his life. This is the guy who lured his own son into a trap because he was convinced he was trying to take over his throne and had him killed. This is the guy who had several dozen nobles held in prison to be killed on the day of his death because he wanted to be sure that the day of his death would be a day of mourning and not a day of celebration for the people. The wise men, though, who came to King Herod, even though that was a day of panic for them, it was still a day of joy for those people who loved God's word and loved the newborn king. They were undeterred. And listen to what they did in response. Matthew chapter 2. After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen in the east went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. Then they opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold and of incense and of myrrh. The wise men didn't care how far they had to go to see Jesus. They didn't care how expensive the gifts were. They gave him their very best. And they didn't even really care that no one else seemed to care. Faith trusts in God's word above all, and that is all that matters. God give you today, on this Epiphany Day, a single-minded heart like that, where you hear God's truth. And it doesn't matter if other people believe it or not. It doesn't matter how people react to it in one way or another way. It only matters what God says. You trust what he says. Take him at his word and rejoice with exceedingly great joy at the newborn king and the forgiveness of sin he brings you. Happy Epiphany.